According to his mother, Tommy had always been a sweet little boy. It was no surprise to her when he decided to help their elderly neighbor with the groceries. The poor older woman had trouble carrying everything by herself, and Tom thought it was a nice thing to do. He had done it numerous times already. It had almost become routine. However, when he finally caught a glimpse of the inside of the woman's home, he knew he had made a mistake. But before we start, smash the like button and make sure to subscribe if you haven't, and hit that notification bell so that you won't miss any new stories. Tommy thought the woman was just an innocent older lady, but what he saw didn't align with what he had envisioned. He now started to think back on how they had met. Had it truly been a coincidence, or had Helen, the elderly lady, planned it that way? He started to think back to when he first offered her his help. His mother had been unwell, and Tommy had taken grocery shopping upon himself, especially with their Trader Joe's right outside their house. The first time he had gone with his small shopping list and his mother's money, it had gone off without a hitch. Thinking back to it all, if his memory was correct, he had started to notice Miss Helen going to the grocery store around the same time that he would the fourth time he went. However, he hadn't noticed it until around the sixth time he went there. It had been that moment that he had seen her struggle so much that he felt the need to help her. Seeing the few items he held, he decided to help. That was his first mistake. He walked over to her with a smile on his face. "Good afternoon, Miss Helen. Do you need any help with your bags?" The old lady smiled at him. The skin around her eyes crinkled in delight. "That is so sweet of you to ask, little boy." On the way back to both of their homes, the two started chatting. "You really are such a good kid, Tommy," Miss Helen said. "I wish my son and grandson were more like you." What he said next would have been mistake number 2. Helen said those words. He felt like it wasn't fair for a nice old lady like her to suffer like that. "I go to the store for my mom a couple of times a week. You could come with me if you want." "Are you sure, Tommy? I don't want to be a nuisance to you or your mom," she asked. But Tommy didn't need to think about it. He was fervently nodding his head. He was absolutely sure. Miss Helen smiled, and they were nearing both their homes. "You really are the sweetest neighbor I have." However, as they arrived at the front door, she did something strange. She had nearly barricaded the door for Tommy. She smiled at him and said, "This is me," and gave him the bag with the groceries for his mother. What was she hiding? Was she doing something illegal? Tommy's patience was put to the test when, during their next grocery trip, Miss Helen began asking about his family. "How's your mother doing these days?" Tommy replied politely, but felt a twinge of unease. The questions gradually became more personal. The next time they met, Miss Helen remarked, "You remind me of my grandson. He was just like you at your age." Tommy couldn't help but feel a shiver down his spine. His suspicions about her intentions began to deepen. As their interactions continued, Miss Helen's inquiries grew more probing. "Were you always this helpful, even when you were younger? Did your father teach you this?" she questioned, her eyes holding a knowing glint. These questions hinted at a familiarity with his family that was both unexplained and disconcerting. It was during their latest trip that Miss Helen's words took a cryptic turn. "You know, Tommy, life has a way of bringing people together, often in the most unexpected ways," she mused. Tommy decided to confide in his mother about Miss Helen's unusual questions. Over dinner, he cautiously broached the topic, detailing the probing nature of their conversations. His mother, however, quickly dismissed his concerns with a gentle laugh. "Oh, Tommy, she's just an old lady being friendly." One evening, as they were discussing a family photo album, Tommy mentioned Miss Helen in passing. He saw it then. A fleeting look of sorrow in his mother's eyes, quickly masked. It was a look he had never seen before, filled with a depth of emotion that suggested a hidden pain connected to the past. As Tommy was leaving Miss Helen's house after another grocery trip, a sudden gust of wind swept through the street, unexpectedly pushing her front door wide open. He paused, caught off guard, as the door banged against the wall. Inside, the dimly lit hallway of Miss Helen's house came into view, a space he had never seen before, stirring a mix of curiosity and apprehension in him. The walls were adorned with old photographs, their frames dusted with age. The images seemed to belong to another era, each holding stories of times long past, stories that Tommy was not privy to, but felt inexplicably drawn towards. This unexpected discovery sent a shiver down his spine, intertwining surprise with a deepening sense of mystery. As he walked away, his mind raced with questions. Why were there photos in Miss Helen's house that looked like him? In the days that followed, Tommy's unease grew into a deep-seated suspicion. He began to reassess every interaction with Miss during their next grocery outing. Tommy watched Miss Helen with a heightened sense of alertness. He observed her expressions, listened intently to her words, and noted her reactions. Every gesture, every pause in conversation he scrutinized, hoping to find some clue that would reveal her true intentions. The friendly old lady he thought he knew seemed to be shrouded in a veil of mystery. Gathering his courage, Tommy approached Miss Helen's house, determined to confront her. The weight of his suspicions and the unresolved mysteries compelled him to seek answers. He knocked on her door, heart pounding, rehearsing his questions in his mind. As the door opened, "Miss Helen, I need to ask you about something," Tommy began, his voice steadier than he felt. He mentioned the photographs he had glimpsed and his growing unease about their resemblance to him. Miss Helen's expression shifted from surprise to a complex mix of emotions as Tommy spoke. Feeling a mix of disappointment and frustration, Tommy finally said, "I can't do this anymore. I can't help you with your groceries." His voice was tinged with a sadness he hadn't expected to feel. Leaving Miss Helen's house, Tommy felt a confusing blend of relief and confusion. Instead, he was left with more questions and a sense of unease about what lay beneath the surface of their neighborly bond. The door closed behind him, marking an end to their routine interactions, but not to the mystery that continued to haunt him. Just as Tommy turned to leave, Miss Helen's voice stopped him. "Tommy, wait," she said, her tone heavy with emotion. "There's something you need to know. I'm your paternal grandmother." The words hung in the air, staggering in their implication. "Many years ago, your father and mother had twins, you and your brother. After they separated, each took one child. It was a painful decision." Her eyes glistened with unshed tears. Tommy stood there numb as Miss Helen's words echoed in his mind. His heart raced with a mixture of dread and urgency as he made his way home, determined to confront his mother with what he had just learned. When his mother returned, Tommy was waiting, the letter clutched tightly in his hands. "Mom, we need to talk," he began, his voice trembling with emotion. He confronted her about the letter, about Miss Helen and the brother he never knew. His mother's eyes filled with tears as she confirmed the truth of Miss Helen's story. "Yes, Tommy, you have a twin brother," she admitted, her voice breaking. Tommy sat in stunned silence, grappling with a whirlwind of emotions. Betrayal, shock, and a burgeoning curiosity about his twin brother consumed him. Tommy, with a newfound resolve, approached Miss Helen for assistance in reaching out to his twin brother. Miss Helen, expressing a blend of remorse and hope, provided Tommy with contact details she had kept all these years. The voice that answered was like hearing an echo of himself. "Hello?" it said, hesitant yet curious. "Hi, it's Tommy, your brother," Tommy replied, his voice laced with a mix of nervousness and excitement. The conversation that followed was a surreal blend of awkwardness and instant familiarity. For the first time, Tommy spoke with his twin, bridging a lifetime of separation with words. Their initial conversation, filled with a myriad of emotions, led to the inevitable decision to meet. They arranged a place and time, each feeling a mix of anticipation and apprehension. The moment Tommy saw his twin, it was as if he was looking into a mirror that reflected a different life. It was a reunion that was both heartrending and healing, marking the beginning of a new chapter in their lives. The story culminated in a family gathering where Tommy, his twin, and their extended family came together. It was a celebration of rediscovered connections and newfound bonds. Laughter and stories filled the room, weaving the fragmented pieces of their family back together. As Tommy looked around at the faces of his family, both familiar and new, he felt a profound sense of completeness.